the most important topic name is called the exceptions, right? So why it is an exception, why we need to use, let's try to understand the code. Okay, so I'm going to create a file folder or whatever it is. I'm going to create a folder here. I'll write all the exceptions related classes inside that. Okay, so exception is the folder. Inside that I'll create a first exception, I will say that, and .py. So what is an exception? So exception can be defined as an unusual condition in programming resulting in the interruption to the flow of programming. For example, I have written some script during some, instead of some data, that flow of control is got interrupted. So how to handle these kind of situations? So whenever an exception occurs, the program stops the execution and further code is not going to be executed. So therefore exception will be raised in the runtime zone. Example, for example, you see here a is equal to 2. I'm going to take here print of a plus b. Now you can see the b which I am not defined. I'm going to print this. I'm going to add this b to the a. If I go and execute this code, and you definitely see there is a error. This error is name error. This is also an exception, right? Because b is we are not defined. Because I am not got this error. Okay, I am not received this error. Okay, at the time of coding, it's a runtime only. It is saying that b is not defined, right? Okay, let me go a little advanced. Okay, I will talk about this. So I'm just going to put it here. I want to divide it to, okay, I want to divide it 2 by 0. Is it possible, guys? Print of and a divided by 0. So what is the output of this? Obviously we'll get an exception. This is a 0 division error, right? Okay, fine. These are the concepts. Okay, 0 division error. This one is a name error. We have it. But there are so many errors. Example, I will take small dictionary. So we can take the person is equal to, and we can keep here the name colon, for example, John. So, and age, okay. And that one is, for example, 45, and the location is New York. This is a simple dictionary which I have it. So what I will do, right, I'm trying to get these values. Okay, so if I'm going to use the get method, whatever it is, okay, let me go and use the person of, you can say simply like this, person of, you can pass some key here. For example, instead of name, I'm giving the name 1. What is an error? What is the error we'll get here? Anybody tell me? We'll get the key value is wrong, right? So I'm going to execute this code. Let me see this. I'll get the key. Okay, there is already exception raised. You can see here, this is also important point. At line number 6, we got an exception. When there is an exception raised at line number 6, and the rest of the code will not be executed. What is the exception? Whenever an exception occurs, the program stops the execution. The further code is not executed. Okay, so that is the reason line number 8 and 10 it is not executing. So what I will do, right, line number 6, I will put it into the comment section. Okay, I want to proceed with now. When I proceed it, it's saying that key error. So the key error is a different error which you are seeing it here, right? So here, these exceptions, key error, 0 division error, name error, these are the errors. These are the predefined exceptions which is given by the Python, right? So I will talk about now. So before moving to the actual concept of exception, you should know something. These exception names.
Or any other thing?
Sorry?
That's last one. That's the key error. That's runtime error or
it's a runtime error. It's a runtime error. Exactly. That question is correct. It's a runtime error. For example, what is that compile error? If I'm not giving the here curl braces, okay, so then we got error, right? If I'm not giving, this one is a syntax error. Okay, that's how it works. Fine, come to the point here. Okay, it is not like a Java. Java, we do first compilation, then after do the run Java file. But those steps are not there in the Python. It is little completely different. It's an interpreter based programming language. There is no, we don't do the compile first and we don't do the run basically. That's a different. Coming to the point here, I want to see here, name error, 0 division error, key error. These are the classes, you know. If anybody asks you what are these errors are the, technically speaking, these are the classes. Object-oriented programming, these are the predefined classes. Then what is the superclass of all the exceptions? What is the superclass of all the exceptions in Python? Anybody guess? There is something called base exception. What is the superclass of all the exceptions? Is base exception. Okay, this is in Python. Okay, this is in Python. Just I'm giving information for you. In Java, what is the superclass of all the exceptions? It's throwable. Just for information, guys. Okay, throwable is a superclass. Okay, this is in the Java. So under this base exception, we have something called exception, and this is a subclass. Under the sub exception, again, we have the multiple exceptions like arithmetic exceptions. In the arithmetic exceptions, again, zero division error, like that. This is a tree. It's a big tree. Okay. Exceptions are like classes here. Okay. Root class of all the exceptions is the base exception in Python. And who is the superclass of base exception? In entire Python, who is the superclass? Who is the superclass of all the classes in entire Python? Whether you write or Python already defined it, who is the father of all the classes? Is the object. It is an object. Remember, this object first letter we are using the lowercase. Okay, but if you go to the Java language, the same story. Object is a superclass only, but they use the O is the uppercase letter. Leave it about Java. So coming to the why I'm talking about Java, people who comes from the Java background, it is easy to understand the exceptions. Okay. Now you can see superclass of all the exceptions is the base exception, and subclass is the exception. Under the subclass, we can have the multiple exceptions. Just only thing you should remember, all these exceptions are classes. Okay. Now what I need to learn in this Python exceptions, guys, what are the things main focused? You can tell me. So main focused keywords is the try, and there is no catch. In Java we have the catch, but here we are using the except. And finally, and what else is there? We use the else statement. Okay, and also last one is the rise. If you understand these 5 keywords perfectly, you almost are done with the exception basics. Okay, so try, except, finally, else, rise. So the exception is mostly we deal with the runtime. So runtime errors are the exceptions. Generally, the program will stop. And to handle these exceptions, we have some of the keywords is introduced in the Python. There is a try, except, finally, else, and rise. Any questions here? Okay. What if my file is, okay, I created one file. If the file is not found, okay, let me show you, okay, how to create a file in Python. So anyway, I'm going to take separate session for this. How to create a file in Python. X is equal to, you have to use the open function. In the open function, I can say that, okay, sample.txt. So this is a function, and by default, it is in the read mode. If you are not specifying it, let it be in read mode. If I'm going to execute this, if you're not executing this, okay, so let me go, because already previously there is an error here. I'm just going to put it into the comment section. So now I'm going to execute this code. You can see file not found error. This is also is an exception. You know, this exception comes under the IO. IO means input output exceptions or input output error. It occurs when input output operation fails. There is an indentation error if incorrect indentation is given. There is a name error if the name is not found. There is a zero division error when the number is divided by 0. There is an EOF error, that is the end of the file error. It occurs when the end of the file is reached to that. So these are the various exceptions we have it in the Python, right? And I don't see, personally, I don't see any Python project without exception. Mostly you also. I don't see any Python project without exception. I don't see. Even Java projects also in the real time. I don't see any single Java project in entire my decade years of experience. I never saw that. Exceptions are the most commonly used concept, and which is very important thing in the every project we use. There is no escape. Okay. So coming to the point now, how to deal with this try and this except and finally and else and rise keywords. So what I'm going to do, right? So let it be this. I'm going to create a new, understanding this, try, and there is something is called the except. I'm going to define it here. Before that, I want to show you some tree from the Python Upshell website itself. Let me go to the window, the browser. Can you please go and type something called Python exceptions? So, or we can say Python built-in exceptions, whatever you can say. So I'm going to this, okay? So this, yeah, there is so much explanation is there, but I don't want this. I want to go to the Python built-in exceptions. We'll show you something very interesting in this. So whatever I've spoken so far, you can see there is a tree here, okay? I don't know how many of you seen this exception hierarchy from the official documentation rather than looking into the so many websites. You see that this is the parent of all the exception. Base exception is the parent. Am I correct? Under that, system exit, keyboard interrupt, and generation exit. Under that, there is a sub. Most of the times we deal with this exception. Base exception. Under that exceptions, there is a stop iteration when you're dealing with the generators. Arithmetic error. You can see overflow error, floating point error, zero division. So zero division error is parent is arithmetic error. Arithmetic error parent is the exception. Exception parent is the base exception. This is how the flow. And only to remember thing, all these are all the classes. This is the free-defined classes. Okay, these are the free-defined classes which we have it now, right? And sometimes you may use the syntax error, a type error, value error, and there is sometimes a warning error, deprecation warning error. All these will come you see in your projects. Okay, so this is the exception hierarchy which you can download this image or you can refer in the website. I'm just going to ping you on the chart, or I'll keep you into the video description. Okay, so I'm just giving the link to you just for your reference. So moving to the code part, okay, I want to create simple exception here to understand in better way. Okay, shall I create new exception here? But before that, there is a syntax we need to take. For example, let me do here. So I will take two inputs from the user. For example, that is the x value, x, and the int is the function. And I will ask user to enter the x value here. Say that here, enter x value, fine. You will understand this example perfect way of how to deal with exceptions now. So int of, then input function. The input function you can take here, enter the, so, okay, sorry. Enter the y value. Okay, this is not required. This is fine. So we are asking user to enter the x value and y value to perform the operations. Okay. So what I will do, right? I will use the print statement, or we can do something called result is equal to, is one of the most famous example people will consider when they are learning the exceptions. Result is equal to x divisible by y, and after that I want to print result. I want to print result. I'm going to execute this piece of code. Then you will see the different interesting nodes. First one, x. I'll enter the 5. Fine. I'll enter the 3. Of course, I'll get the output. I'm going to enter now x. This is called 8. This time I'll give the 4. I'm getting output. Even if I go and give the 6 point something called 78. Okay, because we are converting into the integer, not into the float. That's the reason we got this issue. Just leave it for time being. That is not the point which we are going to talk now. The x value I'm giving the 5, and there is a y value which we got now giving the 0. When 5 divided by 0, what is the output, guys? So you are going to get an exception. So what you understand from this example, if a user enter the values like, okay, all the numbers is fine, the y must not be 0. If it is 0, you are getting the zero division error. Y should not be 0. But how? Either you can restrict the user from this here itself, give the statement, don't enter the 0. But in case we don't know, this maybe user enter, you're handling it. Tomorrow this data comes from the file, flat file. We don't know in the real-time projects, right? How to handle such scenarios? We have to keep this entire code. You are a programmer, you know very well what logic you are writing it. If you think some of the logic, it may get some error on some conditions, that code must be written into the try block. So I'm just going to write try. So just you can write here. Am I correct, guys? So you can write try block, and only try which is not possible to write in code. When you are writing the try means if I'm going to execute this code, you can see definitely this is an exception because try is not closed. So it means either when you are writing a try, you have to write except block, or we can write something called else block. I will talk in shortly. So what is this except block? This is going to caught an exception, right? So I'm going to use now, give the print statement. In the print statement saying that exception is thrown. Exception is thrown. This is the way like handling the exceptions, guys. Let me close this. I'm going to run the code again. You can see here I'm entering the value is 5. This time is 0. You can see this 0 division error. Did you see that error which is caught here? I'm giving here 0 division error, but still I'm not getting the message here because I'm giving this result is equal to x by y outside of the try. You must pass this one is inside the try because this is actual the logic. You can keep this information even outside is also fine, but actual logic is the result is equal to x divisible by 7, so divisible by 0, or x divisible by y. So this is the main logic in our code. This must be in the try block. Now this is going to be handled very well. Now I'm going to execute this code, enter the x value is 5 and y value is 0. You can see that the result which is not defined. Can anybody tell me, I'm using the result here, but when I see that print result, this is out of the try block. So this is not understanding the where the result is there, because you mentioned the result is within the try scope, not the outside. So if you mention as a global variable, it is defined. But since your mention is within the block, so you have to mention this way, or else you can write as a global variable. Of course, there is some other concept I will talk maybe in upcoming sessions. Local variables, global variables, there is enclosed variables, a lot of things are there. Okay, now 5, I'm going to give the 0. 5 divided by z, now you can see correct output we got. So you have to be very careful what logic you are writing. This is a way you have to handle it. Exception is thrown. Instead of giving this message, you can also give the message like y should not be 0. So basically this is an instruction. It is like an instruction we are giving to the user or like to us to understand what went wrong. Okay, so y should not be 0. I'm going to execute this piece of code. I'm giving now 6, or you can give 0, and y should not be 0. And people, you can understand, oh, I given y is 0, so I should not be given this one. So that's where we can understand it easily, right? But there is some set of rules out there. I'm going to show you now. This is a really important, which I'm going to show you now, because that's where like you get some idea. Okay. Okay, so anything, let it be open, that's not a deal. Okay, you can see here there is a document here which is a very important document I want to show you. See the Python exception handling. You can look at this is a tree. Okay, the base exception, inside that there is a arithmetic error, OS error, operating system error, runtime error, lookup error, syntax error. This is how the tree which is there. As I said, base exception is the root class of all the exceptions, right? Now coming to the point next, okay, this is how it is defined. So who is the parent is base exception. Coming to the point, this diagram I pulled out from the direct Python documentation. But this notes which I'm giving now, this is very important. Don't ever try to write only try block, which is an error. This possibility is X means not possible. Only except is not possible. Only else, which is not possible. Only finally, which is not possible. When you are writing the try except else finally blocks, you should not allow you to write only these keywords in our code. It will throw an error. Okay, these are the set of rules we have to follow when you are writing the exceptions. Don't write alone these keywords in your code. Okay, so moving to the next one. Can I write a try and except? Yes, this possibility is yes. Can I write a try and finally? Yes, you can write try and finally, it works. But don't write try and else. But I will talk about what is the else in shortly. So else is the keyword, we can use it in the try. But what is the else? Else is like, okay, if there is an exception is occur, is it going to be covered? So else means even though if no exception occurs, then only else will caught. See, if assume that there is an exception, then it will go to the except block. Assume that there is no exception, then it will go to the else block if you written, right? So finally means whether it is an exception or not exception doesn't care. The finally will be going to be executed. I will show you in shortly how practically it works. But I am telling you your rules, how you write a code in the exceptions. Try and except, try and finally, try and else. Try and else is not possible, right? So try and accept else, this is possible. Try and else finally is not possible, and this is how it is there. Anyway, I'll share this documentation with you, you don't worry. Okay, don't need to about take the screenshots and that. I'll definitely share this link in the GitHub link. You can take these notes, that's not an issue. And moving to the next one, combinations of the exception keywords. So you do not write a print statement between the try and except, it should not be allowed. It is the same case for the else and finally, we should not allow. And also like a try and accept is possible because within the same code, you can write multiple tries and multiple accepts with the flow. And nested tries and nested accepts also will be allowed. Okay, so try and else is not possible. You can see some people try to write this if condition in between, but generally not recommended to use. But syntaxically, it is works. It works. If you use this code, it works, but not generally we are not recommended to use it. Okay, so coming to the point here, try and accept, try and finally, this is also works. And finally, try and accept and try else. Only else after the try, it never going to be work. When you are writing the else means it is always comes in after the accept. When you are writing else, it is always after that. So let me go and show you that coding part, then you'll understand in much better way. Okay, I'm going to delete this. This example only will take in better understanding purpose. So when I say that when I give the 0, y is 0, I'm getting this print statement, right? So now what I will do, right, I will use the else statement. Else can be used. Most of the people think like, okay, most of the people in the sense when you are coming from the different programming language, you think else is the keyword, you can use it only after the if. No, I don't know whether you know it this basics or not. If else can be used after the if, and also we can use after the while. I don't know whether you tried this one or not. We can use it here, and also we can use after the except. In Python, else can be used in the various places. After the if condition, after the while condition, after the except. This can be allowed. Okay. So I'm writing here else saying that print. Okay, it's saying that I can execute or I can print only if no exception. I'm just writing here. Okay. So I can print only if no exception. Just understanding purpose. Now I'm going to execute this code. Let me see what is happening with this. Enter the X value. I'm giving here 6. This time is the 3. And this is, there is no exception in this case. Let me see, 2.0 is the result. The result is printed because at the line number 7, we are printing the result. And of course, if it is going to the else statement, I can print if no exception. What if I'm going to execute the same code and this time X value is given the 6 and this is a 0, I'm going to enter. Y should not be 0. This is a perfect way of handling your code. So you're checking the exception. If there is an exception, throw it. If there is no exception, then go ahead with the else statement. And you may ask, this is the else statement is mandatory? No, it depends on your logic. Okay, it depends on your logic. You can write this else. If you want to execute this code, if no exception, then you can execute this code. Okay, run this code if no exception occurs, else statement. And there is something which is called finally keyword, which is like always executes if there is an exception or without an exception. Okay, so like let me write here the print statement. I'm always executed. Okay, so that is what it is saying that. Okay, I'm always executed. Now I'm going to execute this code. First, me clear all these things. I'm executing the code now. You can see the X value is 6. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, right? X value is 5. Y value is 4. Now I'm going to execute this code. Can you please tell me what is happening in this case? It is saying that, okay, there is no exception. I can print only if no exception, but it's saying that I'm always executed. Now let me try to throw an exception here. So X value is 7. This time I'll give the 0. You can see even there is an exception, not an exception, finally block is executed. Any doubts, guys? Anybody is thinking here, you have doubts? Anybody?
If no exception, then only the else part will be executed, right?
Yeah, if no exception, only else part will be executed. Exactly. And if you think, okay, sometimes we may write this else block between this, okay. So after the try, we should not allow you to write. This is corrupted. I mean, you'll get error directly. So else is always allowed you to write after the except. But there are some smart people, okay, and they are very smart like me. And we used some conditions here. You are confusing the entire Python programming here, right? Use that, okay. So hey Raja, can you please use the true block? True, I can use it, right? True colon. And can you please tell me what actually you're doing it here? This is a if condition. Hmm? You don't confuse your coding, but you are confusing the coding writing here. As I said, else can be written after the if or after the except or after the while. Okay, that's how we discuss. I'm going to execute this code. Okay, and totally now we'll see what kind of thing I am going to see. You can see we got an error. Hey man, you are writing the finally, but this finally either it must be after the try or except. It should not be like this, because this is a completely, this code is gone into the different flow. So you can remove this finally at this for time being. If I'm going to execute this code, you can see the x value I am giving here 5 and y value is 0. Let it give. So this is working, right? Because what is happening in this case, this entire code, the one which I'm highlighted, this is one block of code, and the if and else is another block of code. Okay, so that's how it is. So sometimes people are very smart. Okay, that time they use it in this way, but this can be allowed. But the only thing is that when you are writing a finally, the finally comes always after the try and after always except after always you can write else. Finally means if there is something should be there. Hmm? So got it right. So now what I'm going to do, right? Okay, the finally, okay, this if condition you can remove it. Okay, that is not
I have one question. Can
yeah,
you
go.
do that if condition? Can you play if
Okay,
condition?
yeah.
So once it is executed, thrown the exception, why should not be 0? Why it was selected the true condition again?
Because this is a different flow of control. The
So,
line number 3 to line number 10, it is one block. So
okay.
this is it is a separate block. Whenever the if it is seeing, that means okay, from there it is considering it is if else condition. It is not exception related else.
No, even though what is this as a true, it was went actually to print that this is if condition. So,
Okay, I'm going to give the false here.
yeah,
Okay, I'm going to execute this code. Okay, I'm going to give now 6, and this time is the 4. I can print only if no exception. I'm getting else condition, right? Because it is anyway false. I'm
yeah,
else is executing now.
you got it.
Yeah. So that's how it works basically. This is separate, what I can say, separate flow of control, separate code. Basically, it will like that will be considered. So moving to the part, okay, I'm just removing this if condition, just for understanding where I said. Okay, now going to this finally. Now this is a complete code, like try, except, else, and finally. So any questions here? Okay. Can I write try inside the try? Yes, you can write. Or who said we should not write here? So for example, a is equal to 3, and here the b I am not defining. If you are trying to print a plus b, and b anyway, name error will come, right? So here you need to call the exception here. So we can say that except block. This is the nested conditions. Except we can write the print. Okay. What we can write, guys? This is incorrect, or this is an exception, or we can write something whatever the statement. And more importantly, in real-time projects we don't use print statements here. This is a very bad way of writing code. What we use, anybody guess what we use in the real-time projects, guys? Print
Log,
state, huh?
log.
Yeah, log. Yes, you are right. Yes, we have to use something called log, import, logging, and here instead of this print statement, we use something called logging and dot error. Error is the function. We can say that. But anyway, I will take separate session for logging to understand. Again, I am repeating the statement now. Without logs, without exceptions, I don't see any project. Whether you write a C++ project, Java project, Python project, whatever the project, can you see any I mean, I'm talking about object-oriented programming. Can you see any project without exceptions and logs? It is commonly we use these concepts. So investing time on learning the exceptions is really helpful to you because we use in the projects. Okay, so we have the log error, or you can go for the, if you want to print logging.info, there are 5 functions out there. Okay, but anyway, we'll talk later. I don't want you to take you into the different direction in this case, but we generally use the logging error, right? So you can write this is an error. Okay, this is an error or exception. Can you please tell me any questions you have? This is how we can write try inside the try. If I go and execute this piece of code, so which is going to be thrown error? Now I'm going to execute because everything will go with the flow. If there is no exception at the X and Y, then it will go to the another inside the try. So I'll give the 6 here, and this is a 3. I got the output, but you can see there is an error route. This is an error, logging error we got. Okay, and you may think, okay, why Raja this logging error is printing on my console? I don't want to print here. I want to send this log to my log file. Yes, we can do it, but there is one function name is called the logging.basic. We can use it. See, for example, here the basic basic config is there. You have to define a file name here, and you can automatically all these logs will go to this file. Okay, so that we can talk. Okay, I'll come to that point little later. So logging error is saying that this is an error. By default, it is a root, but we can change it to the which user is logged into this. That user name also we can print here. Logging is very good concept. Okay, and I can print only if no exception. I am always executed. Fine. So it means till line number 8, the flow of control is executed properly. And line number 9 is also okay. Line number 10 is also okay. When it comes to the line number 11, there is a B which is accepted the 0. Right? When B is 0, what will happen, guys? When B is 0, what will happen? There should be an exception. You will definitely will get an exception when B is 0. Right? Is it correct? No, because B is not defined here. That is the reason we got an error. It's a name error, actually. It is a name error. Okay, let's go now. We'll see something how to caught multiple exceptions with only one try block. So I'm going to tell you now how to caught multiple exceptions with one try block. Let me see that. Let me show you how we can do it. So I'm going to write, let me close this. Let me close this. I'm going to create a new file under the exception here. So let me do it. This is one try with multiple exceptions. .py. So what I'm going to do, right, it's a very simple case. I will take one try and I will use it. But instead of writing all the things again and again, I will use the, okay, let me take and write it. So try block. So inside this, okay, try. Okay, so inside that I'm writing the code. I will take the previous example only because we can save some time. This example only I will take, guys. Okay, so moving to this, you can write here. So x is equal to, enter the x value, y is equal to b. Okay, these are the things out there. So what we can do now, I'm going to catch these exceptions. You can see there is an except here. This where can I caught 2 exceptions with this except keyword? Yes, we can do it. Okay, for example, in this case, I understand there is a 0 division error. So 0 division error. Okay, I am writing here. Now I want to go and print. So print off, and there is a 0 division error. Here, exception is. So I'm writing here, and 0 division error. I will give alias name. When you are giving any alias names in Python, we use the as keyword, and that's how we can define it. This is, I will say that excp, or we can, if you want to confuse this one, judge. Judge stands for the 0 division error. I want to print this judge. Okay, so this is how it is. Now I'm going to execute this code. We'll see now what will happen. So I'm going to give the enter the x value is 6 and y value is 0, and you see here an exception is, you're printing an exception here, right? Previous case, we are not printing an exception. Okay, if you want to print Python defined exception name, you can print it. Hey Raja, I in this try block, sometimes it may be possibility of the two exceptions. It's possible, right? It may be possibility of raising the two exceptions within the try block itself. So what we can do it? Anybody tell me? So for example, okay, let me take small dictionary here. So let me take small dictionary. So what is the dictionary name here? For example, data is equal to and dictionary, and we can write here the 1, and this is 1, and here there is a 2, and this is a colon 2, right? And after the result or somewhere like you are asking this, get the data for the key number 3, which is not really present. Am I correct? This is another exception. There will be possibility. So here, how many possibilities are there? How many exceptions can be thrown here? There are 2 exceptions or 3 exceptions. 2 only, right? One is the zero division error. The another one is the, what is this error? Anybody tell me? The one which I am telling at line number 11. It's a key error, right? It is a key error. We'll get the key error because key is not found in the dictionary. So 2 exceptions are there. I want to handle that exception also here. If you want to handle the exception, you can write key error like this. Okay, but you have to, there is one syntax you have to follow. When you are writing the more than one exception in a row with respect to this except, you have to keep them into the parentheses. When you are dealing with this multiple exceptions in a row, we have to use the except inside the bracket, zero division error and key error as JD. Then we can see maybe the spelling is wrong. So you got it right. I'm giving now instead of ZE, I will say that this is a E. So this is, it can be like key error or it can be zero division error. Now let me go and execute this code and you see the output how it is. I'm giving the X value is 6 and Y value is 0. And you see here exception is the zero division error. Fine. Now, anyway, you are seeing this error name, exception name, right? Now I will do one thing now. I'll give the correct value 6 divided by and 3, and this is okay. Now you can see this here exception is 3. So I'm not getting the exception name, but I'm getting the 3. Anybody tell me why the exception name is not coming through here? Anybody tell me? Can I go and use this? Can I print the name here? If I want to class name e dot underscore underscore, there is a lot of things are there. If I'm going to execute this code again, X value is 5 and Y value is 0. You can see this. You want class name, we can print to class names. Now I'm going to see that, okay, key error now. So 6 divided by 3 and value is C. We got the error, class names. If you want to print class names, we can also print. If you want to print the error names, we can print. Better to print always like a name of the exceptions. Okay, so this is the class. It is like a dunder method, which is internally we use for the class. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, so there are so many dunder methods are there. Init method, class method, and one more is the call method. There are many dunder methods are there. To get an exception, see one exception block which is handling the multiple exceptions within the try from the try itself. Is it clear, guys? Any doubts here? If you want to write one more exception, you can write. But interesting note, okay, instead of writing this, maybe you may confuse with this is not the way. Can I write multiple? Because my statement is try with multiple except. So what we can do now, instead of writing this way, I can break down this. So we can write, okay, zero division, we can keep it there. And this one I will remove it. I don't want to keep it into the tuple single, since it is a single element. I'm using the JT, and this is a zero division error. I will remove it, whole thing. I'm making separate one now. Key error, and this is called KE. I'm just giving here JT, and this is the KE. And here exception JT, this is the KE, just to make sure that difference is. Can I make like this? So this is one try block with the multiple excepts. Is it possible, guys? Yes. Now I'm going to clear this text here in the bottom of the console. Let me go and execute this code. X value is 6 and Y value is 0. You can see an exception JD is zero division error. Now I will not give now exception. I will bypass now 6 and I will give 3. This is can be divisible. Now you can see there is a key error. So this is also can be written. You can write only one except block and do it. But there is a rule. Okay. So what is the rule? So what is the superclass of all the exceptions? Base exception, right?
Basic.
So what I'm going to do, right? I will give base exception directly here instead of moving to the below one. So what I will do, right? I will use the base exception here as B. So B stands for base and E for exception, just for note. And inside this, I will use a print statement here. So I can go that same thing. I will copy paste. Why we need to invest time here, right? So we can just copy paste. And this is a B. I'll give this one as a B, and this is also B. So I'm giving the parent is the first one. Child is not considered. Now we can see this, what is going to happen. So base exception is the main parent. Under that there is other people are there here, other childs. Okay. Now I'm going to execute this code. Okay. Now X value is what? 5. Y value is 0. Whatever you do, 0. So which is printing, guys? Here exception class is B. It is going to directly, which one? Is it going to B or ZE? Anybody tell me what is happening in this case? It is directly
Base exception. Right?
Yeah, it is going to the parent first, not going to the child. Is it because of you are calling the parent first? Okay, let me do something now. I'm going to keep this class, this base exception at the bottom of the code. I will call the child first, or childs, whatever it is there. I will keep this base exception at the bottom. Can we do it? Yes, let's go now. Now we can execute this code and we'll see what is the behavior of this. Is it the same or different? Now I'm giving the 0. Do you see any difference here? Obviously, you see the difference here. So even though there is a parent you mentioned at the bottom, it is going with the child only. So the Python does not maintain the superclass and child. If you go to the, there is a Java and all, it is a different story. It is one of the most famous interview question. Okay, in Java, people will ask you when you're writing the multiple exceptions, when there is a parent comes first, you should not allow you to write child next. But here it is possible both the ways, but it works based on the flow of control. How the flow is going with it. Which exception is comes first, that only will be considered, whether it is a parent or the child. But in Python, in Java, if you write class first and child not allowed you to be right in the bottom. Am I correct? Okay, that is anyway different. So I'm just saying that, but that kind of rules are not there in the Python. Simple flow. Okay. So any questions here before moving to the next topic? Tell me, guys, any questions? Okay, you may little get bored with these examples. Let me take the file.
One question I have.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The base exception is the super class. So if any exception is raised and we are not aware that what kind of exception this is, can we just accept this base exception only so it can handle whatever the type of this exception?
Exactly. If I don't know what kind of exception comes through in my code, don't worry. We can use the base exception or exception. Both are fine. We can use it.
Okay.
Yeah. Generally, that's how we do. But yeah, that's how we do. Otherwise, if you know it very well about what your logic is throwing, which kind of exceptions, we can easily capture that. Okay.
Raja, one more question, Raja.
Yeah.
If I won't use any other exception, if I directly use the BE, so it will know what kind of exception it is, and it will give the corresponding error.
Yeah, if you are not specifying here, okay, but it doesn't really make sense. But if you give like this, okay, this is what I given in the first example of our code. If I give this one, only except here, if I go and execute this code, this works. Okay, for example, I'm giving the 5 and 0, and you see this exception, but it is not giving what exception it is. But we are getting it, this except is calling. This block of code is calling, even though there is not an exception. So even there, there is an exception. This except is calling it.
So if I use only that B something you have mentioned, right?
It is not meant. We should not give this. If you give this, is a meaningless. Okay. This is a meaningless. This code is not accepted. You have to provide the exception name here. Okay, base exception or something. You have to provide it because after the except keyword, you have to provide the base exception You can leave it. Alias name it is not required always.
Yeah.
If you want to print, we can give it to that. Yeah.
Okay, base exception is the class which can understand what kind of error it is.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. If you're not specifying any exception, also by default, it will take it as a base exception only. Fine. So moving to the next one, there are two important topics are there, and we can finish it off. Okay. So what are those two important topics? Okay. One of the interview question I will talk. Example. I said like finally can be executed whatever it happens. Am I correct? Finally can be executed. You can see if I keep the finally here at the bottom, it works. You can try with the finally. So let me talk about the finally keyword in depth. Okay, finally demo or whatever the name you can consider. So here I'm going to take here simply try, and here a is equal to 3 and b is equal to a plus c, and which is there. Or we can say instead of this, I want to take different example. We can take file handlers. Okay, so f is equal to open the file. So you can give the file name here. So for example, hello.txt, which file is not there in my system, but I'm giving the by default is the read mode only. If you're specified or not specified, we can use it. Function name is wrong. So this is file does not available, right? So how to caught this exception? We can use the except block, and you can put here, and you can, if you want to specify the exception, right, you can say that file not found error and the colon, and we can if you want to specify the alias name, you can specify this is a fe file exception, and if you want to print this, you can use the print statement and say that this exception is thrown. Exception is thrown. Okay, and at the last we can put the comma, and we use the fe. So I want to execute this small piece of code and to see that if there is an exception. Yes, exception is thrown. Till here it is my statement, my string, and after that it is giving the error number 2, no such file directory, hello.txt. Fine, this is not a deal. Okay, I want to use the finally block because I'm talking about the finally in this examples. So you can see this. Okay, I'm executing, I'm in something like this. Okay, simply I'm giving, even if you can see I'm in is coming up. Even if I give the file, which is even if you give the W mode, it will create a file in the left side. Where is this? Yeah. Okay. Control save. I'm going to execute this code. This time I'm not getting any exception because I've given the right mode. If you see, file will be created somewhere in the here. File is created here. Hello.txt is created, right? So fine, file is created. I don't see any exception, and finally is executed. But now question comes to us: when I can stop the finally? Is there any way I can stop the finally block? Yes, you can stop. There is something called import OS. Okay, and what will happen? Okay, maybe I will take you 1 minute of time here to explain this. So you are running this code on the Python virtual machine. Am I correct? So you are using the VS Code internally using the Python interpreter, and behind the scenes, the entire code is working on the Python virtual machine on Python software. Without software, you cannot work on it. So there is only way like, okay, if your computer is shut down, okay, your code is working from the line number 2. When it comes to the line number 9, your computer is shut down. Okay, that's where finally is not going to work out, right? Am I correct or not? Your computer is shut down or power off at line number 8. Definitely operating system will not perform, means even virtual machine also not do anything. So that time finally will not be executed. So is that answer you are going to tell to your interviewer? No, right?
Yes, won't work. Won't work, right?
It won't work, but this is the answer you are going to tell to your it works basically. See, if your code is working here, suddenly if you switch off your computer, definitely finally block will not be executed. But that is not the fair answer to give an interviewer or to any professional developers, right? So how we can do it? There is an operating system module. We use the operating system. There is a OS module. There is something called exit. Okay, even I forgot or not, I don't know. There is a OS dot and exit is there. Okay. I need to search. There is an exit function. So this is where we can check it. Let me do it, guys. There is an exit. Okay, Python. Because I used it this long time back. So yeah, os dot underscore exit. Okay, os dot underscore exit, because this is one I used last time. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, right? If I'm going to execute this code, what will happen? So if I'm going to execute this, okay, this is okay. This exit is expecting the one parameter. Let me tell you what is this parameter. Also, you'll understand much better. So now you can see finally block is not executed, right? Is it finally block is executed here? No, finally block is not executed. This is the only way you can stop execution of your finally block with respect to the programming. Import or operating system. What is this exit of one? This is called status. Status one means you are stopping the system correctly. Okay, so let me go and tell you what is the os.exit, or you can take the geeks for geeks and we'll see this. And there is a very concept of this one status. I don't know here they're mentioned here. Status means status one means okay, there is abruptly you are stop the computer, or you stop the computer with respect to the interruption. So 0 and 1, if you specify the 1 means I think you abrupted, right, system suddenly, it may affect your operating system. You can give the 0, it is means that it is you intentionally stop your operating system flow with respect to the virtual machine, like that. This flag is denotes for the what kind of interruption is it. Is it abruptly you are stopped this, or like normal flow you are stopped it. It is just a flag which you are giving instruction to your operating system to stop executing your Python virtual machine. Your interrupter will stop immediately. Okay, you're controlling your operating system by using this os model command called exit. Okay, this is the only way you can do it. But again, if you can see here, there is something which I have signed now. What is the difference between the system.exit, os.exit? It is one of the interview question. You can go and check, but we'll talk that one into the Python modules. Okay, so don't worry about that. So this is an instruction we are passing to the operating system, stop the virtual machine. Any questions? Okay, last topic. Okay, so what is the topic of last one is the rise. So at the beginning of this session, I said there are 5 keywords we actually use into the exceptions, right? What I said, try, except, finally, else. We deal with these 4 things. We discussed about the try, we discussed about the except, and also discussed about the finally, else is also done. The last one is rise. What is the use of rise? Rise mainly used to purpose. If you want to raise an exception whenever you need it explicitly, then we can use the rise keyword. In other words, we can say, if you want to create your own exception, you can create. What is meaning of own exceptions? If you go to the Citibank, you have to maintain the minimum 5,000 rupees in your bank account. If you go to the HSBC bank, example guys, don't take it as seriously. HSBC bank, you can go to that, there is 7,500 rupees you have to maintain the. Or if you go to the like DBS Bank Singapore, you have to maintain the $100 in your account. Example, I am saying that, okay? Every bank has its own limitations, right? Some banks says that don't withdraw the money. I mean, generally it is not the case in India. Generally, I am saying. So every bank has its own set of rules or set of constraints when you're dealing with the data. Okay, that time we write exception. So data Citibank exception or HDFC Bank exception, something like this. You have to maintain that low balance. So that time, how to create your own exception? If you want to create your own exception, we have to understand the inheritance concept. What is the inheritance concept? So let's use this first one is rise keyword normally, then we'll talk about user defined exceptions. So rise is underscore keyword. Sorry for taking a little more time, but I have to finish it off. Okay. So this rise keyword. Now I'm going to see this. Let me see that. Okay. If I'm going to say, or like you can say that rise, and we can say that key error. Just use simple command. I'm going to execute this code. Simple. You'll see the exception. As simple as. If you want to raise any exception, for example, arithmetic error, you just give the arithmetic error, this will be thrown. Or else when you are writing this simple programming, if name is equal to something like Raja, throw an exception. If name is equal to Raja, throw an exception. So this name is equal to Raja, which is there. I'm just giving here, passing this, and here I'm just throwing an exception, Rise. It is a name error or something. See, it is not really a name error, guys. I'm just giving an example here. So else part, don't rise the exception. You can print something called, hey, no, this is no exception or something like this. Okay, I'm going to execute this code. Of course, Raja is equal to Raja, name exception comes. And you give the Raja 1 is equal to Raja, which is not equal to, we are getting no exception. So explicitly, if you want to raise an exception, rise space and exception keyword, exception class. Understand? Okay, not only for this, okay, any questions? Okay, there is one more important topic here. Maybe I don't know how to tell this in this way because I don't know how many of you know about inheritance concept. If you want to write your own exception, for example, as I said, DBS exception, DBS bank exception, or like your own exceptions which you want to raise. So you have to take the class name DBS exception, and you have to inherit the base exception or like normal exception class. Any exception class you can take, and you can write the code here. So this is where like, so if I'm going to use the rise keyword and DBS exception, this can be raised, something like this. Yeah, and okay, this is indentation error. Don't worry. So this is what, if I'm going to execute this, of course, there is a main DBS exception can be. This is my own exception. Okay, but I'm not written the logic here. You have to write a logic. If the amount is less than 300, 3000, 6000 or something, you can write a DBS exception, but I will talk this one later. I feel like every project has, every client has its own exceptions, guys. I don't know how many of you know it, this. Every project.
What's the purpose?
The purpose is like achieving the company goal, right? Every company has its own rules and regulations. If you're not following those data regulations in your code, you have to throw in exceptions. If you're not maintaining your minimum balance 500 rupees in SBI, we have to throw an exception. Even if you go to the ATM, if you're trying to withdraw the $500, but in your account only $100 is there, you'll get an exception. That exception is nothing but you have the very minimum balance, you have to maintain the balance. See, it is a message to the user saying that you are giving the incorrect information, you are trying to do the incorrect action, do the correct action. That is the aim of the exception handling. So you have to give a proper information to the user. Instead of doing this, you do this way. This is how it works basically. This is how the framework which is defined. So that's why it is, we are actually basically mentioning this one.
Raja, one more question. What is the difference between this raise and exception? Exceptions also we are getting the information of error, and even raise also it's kind of exception it is throwing.
See, that is a code you are throwing. This is explicitly you are throwing. Intentionally you are throwing an exception. Okay. It's not only the rise. See, your user define exceptions not only for the rise. Okay. This is I don't want you to be confused with this. So you can also use a try block and you write some block of code here. Okay, something like x is equal to 3. Hello? Yeah. So x is equal to 4, and you can see this. Okay, if you want to rise exception here also, you can rise it. So db exception. You can define it, and you can call this exception by using the except block. Okay, so you can again, if you want to define this exception, you can also define it here. If you want to give the alias name, you can give it a DBA, DBS or DBE, whatever the name is. If you want to print, you can print it. If you want to log, you can log it. Okay, something like this. Okay, now you are seeing this exception is my exception, right? So it is my exception. Of course, nothing is there because I'm not written the much logic here. I just given only pass declaration. If you define the exact logic, we'll get to know how this exception is there. So maybe the exception is amount should not be maintained less than $500 or something like that. We can define it. Okay, so any questions? So what is the takeaway from these exceptions? Exceptions mainly deal with runtime errors and user. There are what is the superclass of all the exceptions? This is the base exception. And what are the keywords we have it here? These are the things only. When you know try, except, finally, else, and tries. When you understand these 5 keywords, you are done with exceptions. We know that there is some set of rules we already spoken here. I don't know. Okay, you can see there is a set of rules.
Can we say finally is a dummy kind of thing, like
No, okay.
we have any
Not
specific function?
exactly. That is a good question you asked me. In the real time, finally we use it for the closing the database connections. Even though exception raised or not raised, it doesn't care. You have to close the database connection.
Correct,
What what will happen if you are not close the exception? Your server will get more burden. It is not able to handle. You are opening the database connection, you are not closing it. So most of the times we use the file close or database resources closing and all, we use the finally block.
So instead of connection close directly, if you mention that finally, it will automatically close the connections.
Right. No, you have to mention the close function.
Okay.
You have, because it won't do automatically. So you have to use a with keyword in the Python. If you want to close the file automatically, we can use the with keyword. That we'll see later. But generally, we use the finally block. You can close the connection by using the connection dot close.
Yeah. And also here you mentioned something like to open the file or to search the file, some commands. So default it will be searching in the where this program is written. Default location could be.
Default is always like current working directory. When your current working directory, you're right. Yeah, good questions you ask. So anything else, guys? Do you have in your mind? Do you have any questions you want to clarify here in the exceptions?
That OS dot underscore exit, there you given 0 and 1. 0 and 1 both are meant for the same purpose, right? To in final in in this.
Purpose is same only, but instruction command name is different.
Yeah.
Is it
either close it abruptly or in by your own choice, something like this?
Yeah, normal execution or like abrupt exception. So is it normally closed, or normally we are closing the file, or exiting from there, or suddenly we are exiting? Suddenly means again OS has to read the content. If power is off, right, that is abrupt. But you only shut down the computer, that is a normal shutdown. So that's how it is 0 and 1 instruction. It is for operating system only. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine, guys. So any other questions if anybody have? Okay, hopefully we had very great sessions today. Okay, hope you learned something new things. We'll catch up maybe tomorrow.